to episode 10 of Women, Sex, God, Power, a podcast where we are exploring the extraordinary evolution that we are currently moving through as a collective humanity, the rise of divine feminine power and the downfall of modern day men. I have been away because I have been pregnant with ideas, not a man's child. Don't be ridiculous. I would rather be buried in the depths of a Sahara desert, have my brain pulled out through my nose, and be mummified like my ancestors while still fully breathing, conscious, and alive, than be impregnated by a human mortal man. Being mummified would be more pleasurable and enjoyable, frankly. But this episode is not about the atrocities of men. Actually, no, that's wrong. It is about the atrocities of men. Because today we are talking about dysfunctional male leadership and why we continue to give men a pass even when they are abusive as fuck and their behavior is resulting in literally the devastation of the entire planet. And yet, as a humanity, we continue to see men as the voice of authority and the voice of leadership. We continue to put our faith in dysfunctional men and as women. And I want to begin by briefly highlighting the Jay Shetty controversy as an example of someone who can lie about their entire background, fabricate this entire story of being a monk in India and, having these spiritual experiences. And it turns out that he was lying. Completely lying the whole time. But on top of that is now being called out because he has plagiarized other people's content, literally repeatedly, built his entire Instagram following and online following predominantly as a result of plagiarizing other people's content, and nobody has called him out on it. And this episode is not about this person that I find extremely boring, but I am using him to highlight a very, very real problem that we have in our society, which is this. If Jay Shetty was a woman, do you think that we would be giving her a pass? Do you think that we would be letting her off? Do you think that we would be excusing this behavior? The fact that, someone has built their entire brand and story off of lies. And not just around lying, but also deceiving people, leading people on and making them believe that, this is someone that they can put their trust in, someone they can put their faith in, someone that they can go to and buy a coaching program that costs $7,000, by the way. I mean, if you're lying about one thing, how many other things in your life are you also lying about in an effort to climb the corporate ladder, build your success? One of the things that I think we all need to come to an agreement about when it comes to prominent leaders or successful men or women in the world is that if someone is not building their brand rooted in integrity, if someone's words are not aligning with their action, if someone's words are not an honest reflection of who they are at their core, why would we give them our trust? But this is why. Because we live in a patriarchal society in which we have been programmed to believe that man is the voice of God, that everything that comes through man is to be trusted because it is the voice of God, because it is a reflection of, the laws of the universe. And regardless as to how poorly behaved a man is, regardless as to how many women he sexually harasses, how many people he hurts and abuses on his way up to creating his empire, it doesn't matter because he's a man. And, we must always trust men because they are the voice of God. That's essentially what this is rooted in. It's rooted in religious programming. It's rooted in the collective hypnotic spell religious programming that we have been born into, because it is a hypnotic spell that we have all inherited. And unless you come into the world as a freak of nature, like myself, who is just immune to this level of programming, which is why I notice it so clearly, there is some part of your inner world that is being dominated and dictated by this program, which is everything that comes from a man and everything that comes through a man is rooted in truth. And it doesn't matter how evil he is, it doesn't matter how abusive he is, it's rooted in truth. That is the spell that men and women are collectively under. The way that this impacts women is that they don't have an ability to trust in their own intuition, to trust that they, as one of the most powerful creations and manifestations of what the universe is capable of conjuring and creating hold all of the wisdom and intelligence and knowing of what is right for them, so they continue to hand their power over to false dysfunctional male gurus and leaders. They continue to put their trust in dysfunctional male partners, husbands, institutions, religions created by men. And the danger in this is that it doesn't matter how much harm those institutions or that biblical or religious programming is causing. It doesn't matter how much harm these men in positions of authority and leadership are causing. The vast majority of women on the planet will continue to put their faith in false male leadership, toxic male leadership, because the part of their psyche that has been infiltrated and hijacked by religious programming, by the patriarchy, actually cannot recognize that they are the greatest source of wisdom on this earth, that woman and the feminine is the greatest source of wisdom, is the greatest source of intelligence that exists on this planet. Woman acts as a portal that bridges the gap between heaven and earth. Women have that ability to connect into subtle energetic realms and pull down insight and information that enables them to know what is going to happen before it has happened. I'm talking about these psychic gifts, the gifts of a prophet, the gifts of a seer, a mystic, a priestess, the one who is all-seeing and all-knowing because she has infinite connection to these energetic realms that hold this vast ocean of information. So tell me, at what point in our history did women collectively and individually forget that they are the source that contains the highest form of wisdom and intelligence that this universe has to offer, that they can directly connect to that without needing to go through any male authority figures, any male leaders, any male teachers, any books written by men, any laws, religions created by men? When did we forget that as women? When did we start listening to male spiritual gurus and coaches and male influencers like the Jay Shettys of the world and forget that we are the source, the primary source of all of the intelligence and knowledge and power as women, as feminine beings that create life inside of our bodies? When did we forget that? And the answer to that is religion. Religions created by men. Religions have made it seem that the voice of God only communicates through man and through men. Religions that wiped out all records and all history of women who were prophets, who lived in the era of Jesus Christ, lived in the era of Mohamed and the Buddha, who carried exactly the same gifts and power and knowing and intelligence, if not more. Do you really believe that during the era of Jesus Christ, Muhammad, Buddha, all of the main prophets, seers, mystics of that time, do you really believe that their female counterparts didn't also exist? With infinite power, with infinite influence. Of course they've been wiped from our history books. Of course they would not be recorded in the religions. Of course they would not be. Our entire history, as far as these women are concerned, has been wiped clean of any evidence, of any records, of any teachings that originate from women, that come through women, about the feminine way of leadership, how to create a society and a culture that honors femininity, that honors the feminine principles, that is a byproduct of a matriarchal society that lives in harmony with the earth, that understands that women are the rightful leaders of this planet. Why is that? Why are women the rightful leaders of this earth? Because Earth is a feminine planet. Earth is a feminine entity, it's a feminine being, and it should be run by women who understand what is required in order for a feminine entity to stay in balance, to stay in harmony, women who understand what is required in order for the collective to thrive, not just a tiny group of individuals, not just those that exist at the top of the hierarchy, not just the 5%, not just the millionaires and billionaires, but for an entire society and culture to thrive, because women come in inherently and intuitively knowing that when we have a civilization of people who can thrive and live in harmony, it benefits all. It benefits the great whole. It benefits everyone on the earth. And that when we have a small proportion of people who are thriving and everyone else is in misery and suffering, that collective trauma and collective pain is going to impact the whole earth, the whole planet. And it will begin to manifest in the form of global warming, in the form of deforestation, in the form of every single devastation and destruction that the earth has experienced, which is a result of toxic masculine leadership. Look at the way we function on this planet when men are in charge. It's the energy of taking, it's the energy of grasping, it's the energy of consuming resources. That is what dysfunctional men who are out of touch with both the divine feminine and the divine masculine within them do. They become takers, they become consumers, they become parasitical entities. And what does a parasite do? It takes and it takes and it consumes and it eats away at all life in its vicinity. This is what we have right now on the planet. We do not need any more evidence. If you look at what's happened in Palestine, in Gaza, in the Congo, look back at history. We do not need any more evidence as to what happens when we have men predominantly leading on this planet from a consciousness that is greedy and hostile and aggressive and traumatized. That energy of taking, that energy of destruction, that energy of consumption, that energy of wiping out people's homes and invading their land. This colonizing attitude, this colonizing force, it is the darkest, most terrorizing, most dysfunctional energy that exists on this planet. And our Earth is a feminine planet, and so it should be run by feminine beings. The Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, masculine planets. The Moon, Neptune, Venus, Earth are feminine planets. They are feminine planets that should be run by feminine beings that understand what is required for all life to thrive, for everyone to live in harmony. There was a time on this planet where we had a matriarchy, where women used to put themselves at the center of their own universe. Women used to rule the world. Women were seen as the ultimate source of wisdom and intelligence, whom men would go to in order to learn, in order to drink from their wisdom, in order to come into balance, in order to restore themselves. Men understood that women contained this infinite divine power, that they had this connection to higher spiritual realms that enabled them to know things and foresee things and understand things that men did not have the same access to. And what happened? Religious dogma. And what is the result of religious dogma? Again, it is women, it is a world of women who put the voice of man and the voice of men and male leadership above their own voice, above their own intuitive intelligence, and above the voice of other women. We have created a society and a culture where there are so many women who will happily learn from men, even if those men are extremely dysfunctional and abusive and toxic. And yet they cannot stand to see other women coming up in the world, other women finding their voice, finding their expression, finding their power, because these other women who are looking on at powerful, self-expressed women, they are hijacked by their own inner misogyny. How does that play out in us as individuals? Well, here's a test that I would invite you to do. Go through this process in your own time. When you are listening to a man speak on something with authority and confidence, how do you respond? Are you immediately willing to listen to him and learn from him? When you listen to a woman speaking on something with authority and confidence, what is your immediate response? Really pay attention to this, because when we are carrying hidden misogyny, when we see women who are powerful and beautiful and expressed, our immediate visceral gut reaction is usually to search for some kind of flaw, to discredit her in some way, to find reasons not to trust her. But we never do that with men. And this is what I mean about that level of hidden misogyny that we can't even see within ourselves anymore as men and women. I mean, for some men and women, it's their entire personality. For some men and women, they would literally rather be dragged to their grave then see a powerful woman as the voice of real authority and a trustworthy figure, because they have been so deeply entrenched and indoctrinated into believing that man is the only trustworthy source from which they can consume and drink their knowledge and wisdom. So as a woman, I really invite you to look at this pattern in yourself. Look at how you respond to a man when he's sharing from a place of power, and look at how you respond to a woman who is maybe talented or beautiful or has a certain aura to her, has a certain presence to her. Look at the difference between how you respond to men in positions of authority and women in positions of authority. Is there a part of your being that wants to fight against what a woman is saying, that wants to find a reason to discredit her, to distrust her, to not take her seriously? Because this is part of the programming of the patriarchy and the misogyny that we have all soaked up, that we have all absorbed, whether we're conscious of it or not. And when it comes to women, we look at ways in which we can discredit them. We look at ways in which we can nitpick at the way that they present themselves, the way that they express themselves, the way that they teach. Because there's a part of us that is fighting, right? Fighting against the idea that a woman can hold just as much authority and power as a man, if not more. And I truly, truly believe that a lot of the changes that we want to see collectively on this earth in order to live in more harmony, in more prosperity, in more abundance, where everyone, minorities and people of all races and colours and religions gets to live an abundant, fruitful life, I honestly, truly believe that that change is only going to come about through women making themselves the center of their own universe and remembering that they are the source of all of the wisdom and knowledge and power they are seeking. That is not going to come through a man. What are you going to learn through a man about your own power that you could not learn from yourself or learn from other women? There is nothing that a man can teach you about feminine power. Even if he's had many, many lifetimes in his past lives as an old soul, as a feminine being, in this lifetime, women and you as a feminine being are the greatest source of power and wisdom and knowledge that exists in this universe. And that doesn't mean that we can't go to teachers and, trustworthy gurus and people that carry different strands of information and different perspectives, because we all share from a different source of power, right? My teachings come from channeling the Akashic Records, which holds all of this information and knowledge. A lot of my teachings also come through from the ancient Egyptian civilization, and being very tapped in as a half Egyptian woman, being very, very tapped in and tuned in to that particular stream of consciousness. So a lot of the teachings that I have channeled and brought through on feminine power are coming through from that stream of consciousness. We can go to different teachers to learn and expand our own consciousness, but ultimately at the end of the day, I would say to you as a woman, and I would also say to you as a man, where are you giving your power away in your life? To male authority figures that maybe do not have the best intentions, whose intentions are not to uplift you and empower you and lead you back to the source of your own power and your own self-knowing, and help you to develop an intimate connection with you and your own self, because you hold God and you hold the universe inside of you. All of that information is inside of you. You don't need to open a book. You don't need to go to a psychic or a tarot reader. All of these things are very useful practices, but all of that information and knowledge is inside of you. Where are you giving your power away to people in your life who you think hold the answer or the key to unlocking your own power and your own voice? Now, again, that's not to say that there aren't teachers or very gifted psychics or seers that hold divine wisdom that they've been able to unlock within themselves and can now share with others as a result, others who are maybe struggling to access that same well of awareness and well of power. Become more conscious of where you are giving your power away, because you don't trust that there is enough inside of you, that there is enough knowledge, that there is enough wisdom, that there is enough understanding of your own nature and your own constitution to make wise decisions or choices. Now, I understand the complexity of this, because sometimes if we've gone through trauma, if we're feeling vulnerable, if we're feeling disconnected from our own power and source, then we want to plug into other people. We want to plug into other people to find our feet, to get back into flow, to find the answers so that we can have a deeper sense of clarity and connection to ourselves. But I would invite you to become so much more discerning of who you are going to in an online realm, particularly, especially full of coaches and mentors and teachers who are not qualified to be able to hold you in your vulnerability, especially if you are someone who has journeyed through immense trauma. I would invite you to make the word discernment your number one word for the rest of 2024. As the online realm continues to have more and more coaches and mentors and influencers popping up and claiming to be equipped with the knowledge and the wisdom that can help you transform your money situation or whatever it is that they're selling, I would invite you to develop more discernment and more awareness and more connection to your intuition of who is really worthy of your trust. Your trust and your energy and your time and your commitment and your investment into people that you see as teachers and that you see as healers and creators and influential voices, that is something that they need to earn from you. That is something that they need to work very hard to earn. Your trust and your energy and your attention should not be given freely to anyone that is fighting for it. And a lot of people are fighting for it. You know this. A lot of people in the online space are fighting to sell themselves and market themselves and convince you that they have all of the keys and all of the answers for all of your problems and that they can get you out of financial debt and get you into a space of sexual empowerment if you just invest $7,000 in a coaching program. Jay Shetty. I'm going to stop. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. This is really about your relationship with power, right? This is what it comes down to. Are you investing more of your power and your trust, the power of choice, the power that comes from your focus and your awareness and your attention? Are you putting more of your power and your trust into people, into places that haven't really earned your trust, haven't really earned the right to be seen as this authority figure and this person of power and presence and importance in your life? There are some people in the world that should not be taking up so much space in your consciousness, in your head. They should not exist there. They do not deserve to take up that space. They haven't earned the right to take up that space. And I'm not just talking about online influencers. I'm also talking about partners and husbands or, again, because we're talking about male authority figures, for women especially, who are the voices that are operating through you, that are influencing the choices that you make, that are influencing the decisions that you make when it comes to your own empowerment? And you see, this is how we made women forget their power, forget how influential they truly are, because we made women worship men and view men as the voice of authority, forgetting their own inner authority. And if we can brainwash an entire collective of women into believing that men are the voice of authority, that is how we can hypnotize an entire collective of women into believing that men hold all of the power, that we need to go through some sort of male authority figure, some sort of male, leader, coach, mentor, whatever, before we make the decisions that we want to be making in our life. This is really a call to women to recognize that they are the source of everything that they are looking for. Why do you think so many men are constantly trying to plug into your energy and feed off of it? Why do you think so many men in positions of authority and leadership need to surround themselves with women in order to uphold their own sense of self? Men, for many, many centuries, have relied upon women in order to feel a sense of power, in order to derive their sense of power. And a lot of that sense of power has come as a result, as you know, of dominating and controlling women and the feminine. So who is truly more powerful? Who is more capable of the most powerful leadership? Men who need to source from the feminine and need to source from women constantly in order to feel that they have some sort of sense of identity and some sense of leadership, some sense of control and authority, or women who only source from themselves, because you don't see women running around trying to plug into men and feed off of men and live off of men in order to generate their own abundance. And if they do that, then they're in a very baby era of their evolution and their spiritual consciousness, and they've yet to really awaken to their power as a woman and recognize and remember that they are holding the most abundant energy in this universe, which is feminine energy. Feminine energy, which is life-giving, sustaining, regenerating, forever recreating, rebirthing, transforming itself. No matter how many deaths she endures, no matter how many forms of destruction she needs to move through, whether we're talking about women as individual beings or this planet, this earth that is forever regenerating itself, no matter how much toxic, masculine, dysfunctional, male leaders, masculine-made corporations take and rape her and pillage her, she is forever regenerating herself. Now that is a power that is so immense and so abundant and so indestructible that of course, we would seek to control her. Of course, we would seek to create religious texts that wipe out all remembrance and all history and all knowledge or teachings that came from women during the era of the matriarchy, during an era where witches and priests and prophets and seers and psychics were attempting to spread their message, to reach other women, to empower them. So most of the dysfunction that we see on this earth is a result of women putting men at the forefront of their consciousness, viewing men as a voice of authority, forgetting that they are the true center of this universe, that they hold all of the abundance and all of the knowledge and all of the wisdom that is required in order to create the most empowered life for themselves and to create the way forward for the rest of humanity. It is women who hold those keys. It is women who decide whether they are going to open the gates to their energy, their feminine energy, their wisdom, their sexuality, their sensuality, their power, their healing. It is women who decide. It is women who hold the keys, not men. And we are living in a time now in which women need to remember and need to reawaken to that power and need to recognize that they are the source of everything that they have been searching for. They need to recognize that, because it is woman, it is the conscious woman, the awakened woman, that will lead the way for the rest of humanity, men included, because men also need to be led back to the feminine within them, the feminine within the earth. Men need to go to the earth for their healing, not women. Men need to go to the earth and learn to connect with the earth as a feminine entity that is abundant, and that is restorative, and that is regenerating. That is also how men will heal. They need to connect to the feminine, but in a different way, through connecting to the earth, not plugging into women. Women need to remember that they are the voice of authority that is abundant with all of the knowledge and wisdom and intelligence that is required to carry them through in this lifetime and help them create their most spiritually aligned existence. I realize that every single episode turns into a church sermon to an extent with me. If you've been listening so far, you're probably really familiar with how intense I get on this topic, because they're so important. It's such an important thing that we need to look at during this time. But that is all I will say for now. Just a quick reminder before you go, I've just launched a free webinar for women, especially for women creators, leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, women that want to really cultivate the power, the confidence to be able to show up in the world, in the online space, make themselves more visible, take up more space, build the leadership skills that enable them to influence, impact other women, and really step into the role of leadership in their own life and in their work. You can register for the webinar for completely free via the show notes. Go to the episode show notes and sign up there, or you can follow me on Instagram and find it there. It will not be available for free forever, so do make sure that you sign up as soon as possible so you can benefit from all of the free information and knowledge that is available in there. And I hope that you enjoy this episode, and I will see you hopefully next time. Oh, don't forget to follow me on Spotify, so you never miss an episode, and also don't forget to share this episode with a woman or a man who might find it useful. Lots of love. Bye!